Hello and welcome to the R&C Financial Vodcast. I'm Gareth Williams, based over in the not-so-sunny UK Wales, and I am very, very pleased to be joined by Rob Hohmann over in the US, in Tampa Bay, no doubt, and I'm just co-hosting and really, really looking forward to asking Rob some fantastic questions about his brilliant business. So firstly, hello Rob, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for asking.
Excellent. Oh, good to see. What I really wanted to find out, Rob, first of all, is just tell me a little bit about what has been a fantastic life so far. Where were you born? Just give us a little bit of information about how you are, who you are.
I was born in 1968 in the suburbs of Chicago and lived there for a period of time. My father, in his business in the printing industry, got transferred out to Amish country in Pennsylvania. But however, I was able to escape Amish country, moved back to Chicago in 97, but I moved to Florida in 99 because it's just too cold in Chicago. And I've been happy to say I haven't shoveled snow since 1999 and very proud of that.
I love that. That's fantastic. So I guess living on that side of the world, it's been an interesting, as you say, the weather keeps you on your toes, if nothing else.
You keep dodging hurricanes and things like that. But, it's always something, no matter where you live.
There is always something, quite right. As we move forward to just understand a little bit about this business then, R&C Financial, again, just take me back, Rob. How did you become, in those early days, interested in the subject now that I know you like to teach and are very knowledgeable about, and that what this vodcast series will focus on as we move forward? But what sparks your interest?
When my wife sold her business in 2015, for the previous 5 years, had been working with her as a salesperson technician for her industry. And after the sale, there was a non-compete. So I needed to get involved in something other than the industry that I was in, and was interested in insurance because 2016, that's really when the impact of the Affordable Care Act came into play. And I personally have a disdain for any kind of rules that make it an obligation in order to do something to satisfy the government. So it was at that point that I got involved in more or less. I started off in the health insurance business, but what really started to raise my eyebrows was the American healthcare industry. So the treatments and healthcare, and I mean, come to find out, 90% of all medical billing deliberately has errors put into it. And, it's all about being an advocate for the people that are using the plans. And if you're their agent, and they don't have the understanding, the information, it's up to me to not only educate them, but protect them. So I came up with the health insurance bodyguard aspect, and there's no violence involved in that, but it's all, why would you need a bodyguard? Well, for protection. So my job is to make sure you understand how to use your coverage, and you're more of a consumer of your health care as opposed to being a victim of it. And I think it's really important for you to feel comfortable about the process of, whether it's you need to get labs, imaging, x-rays, MRIs, something taken care of. You want to be aware of where you can go, where you're going to get what you need, but you're not going to have to pay as much as what you possibly could if you just went where they told you, oh, we work well with them. That's a big, huge red flag. It's usually incorporating kickbacks or just higher prices than what's necessary. So my job is to make sure you're not paying more than what's necessary, keeping your money in your pocket.
And that's what it's all about, isn't it, Rob? I get that. That's fantastic. Thank you, Rob. So that really is interesting, Rob, and I just love the kind of the background story. I'm always interested in that. Values is a big part in any business, and I know you've shared them offline with me in terms of some of those key values you have, Rob. That respect, that accountability, that honesty, and listening skills is clearly a big one. But just tell me, Rob, a little bit more, and our audience, of course, what those values mean to you and how it's really relevant to your brilliant business.
Mark Twain wrote, "You never have to remember what you say when you speak the truth." And I'm a firm believer in that because, and I'll go into it. And quite frankly, when I'm selling health insurance, let's be honest, all health insurance sucks. It's up to me to make sure you're in the one that sucks the least for you. All right. So, honestly, it's all about what's in it for me, for the people that I work with, what's in it for them. They want the product service. They want to be introduced to something that's going to do the most for them, not the most for me. There's a lot of agents out there that sell the products to people that make them the most money instead of offering the most in benefits. And it's a big pet peeve of mine that it just never is about the agent. It's always about the customer, and they need to be able to get the most. They need the most from the interaction. That's why you're brought into this equation, and the whole bodyguard. Whether it's your health or your wealth, I am here to protect you, your health and your wealth.
No, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And I love that Mark Twain quote. With a number of books behind me, I can guarantee that's in one of them. That really is great. It's so true. And that level of accountability again and the kind of reliability in what you do. There's a massive policies have got to be reliable. When you need them to pay out, when when something happens, with your health or wealth, you want to know the policy and the advice you've been given is correct. So, I mean, picking up on that point, how many appointments and conversations do you have where that really is something that's really prevalent?
Well, it's. I mean, it's one of the questions that I ask. Is who are the doctors? What are the medications? Because really, whether or not you have a pre-existing conditions are determined by the doctors that you see on a regular basis or the medications that you currently are taking. Because then it doesn't feel like I'm really intruding into them and saying, asking them about. Because if somebody's like, "Oh, I'm very healthy," if I ask them if they got any pre-existing conditions, and I come to find out and when I'm going over their medications, they're taking something that only a person who's diabetic would be taking. Well, I notice here that's you're taking metformin. That's for a diabetic. So you're what, type 2 diabetic? Yes, but you said you were healthy. So ultimately, there's a process of trying to uncover the things that are going to be important. Any kind of policy for the health insurance industry. It's all about accessibility to, and that's what gives it the value. The value is to the accessibility to the doctors and facilities that suits your needs, not my needs, your needs. And ultimately, it has to fit into your budget.
Yeah.
Your budget, not my budget, your budget. And then ultimately, it's that's going to be what best suits your needs and budget is the policy that sucks the least.
Yeah.
And I've had many occasions where people have approached me and said, "I've been in this plan for 14 years and it's just starting to get way too expensive." And I'm like, "Okay, let's understand where you're at." I always tell everybody, in order for you to qualify anything that you're looking at, you need to understand what you have now, because that's your baseline. And then anything else you look at is either better or worse.
Yeah.
And inherently it's expectations. So what to expect when using your coverage, and it's your I'm comfortable with that expectation, or you're not comfortable with that expectation, that determines the value and ultimately whether or not it sucks or not.
Yeah.
So, and I've gotten in a lot of situations where people were in something that it's called a grandfather plan, and they've had it since prior to the Affordable Care Act. And in many cases, I'm like, you know what? I wouldn't leave this policy ever until you get into Medicare. And in fact, I would recommend that you just put up with this for another 2 years, because you know how it works. You know exactly how it works. And because you're opening up a can of worms by trying something new, and you're not yet prepared to having to juggle a bunch of flaming chainsaws when you were just fine, knowing it. I gave my card, got it all taken care of. I knew what to expect, but you're inherently introducing some new. It's the risks, as opposed to paying less money. The reward is not as intelligent of a decision to be making. You want to be able to be, dependable with things and the decisions you're making, and I'll help you to understand it. I want you to realize that I need to stay in this policy, not me saying just solely, I would recommend you stay in this policy. I want you to really understand that, I see what you're saying. You're correct. Okay. All right. Well, thank you for, now I can sleep better,
Yeah. Yeah.
knowing that I'm in the right situation to be in. So it's always, I enjoy that aspect, because having an agent telling you that you're stay where you're at, you're fine. That's not a guy that's looking to try to make a buck.
Mm.
That's a guy that's looking for the respect that he's bringing to the table, and honestly telling you that you'd be wasting you would not be happy about the results if you made this
Yeah.
decision.
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of things that come into play, and everybody's situation is unique. But my goal is not to confuse you with industry jargon and things of that nature. Nothing makes me more really angry when people start talking with acronyms and things in the industry, and I'm like, hold on, slow down. What the hell are you talking about? And I promise everybody to say that I will never use industry jargon in order to describe a situation, because you don't care how smart I am. You just care how much I give a crap about what it is that you're trying to achieve and understand. Understand that. That's what I need to understand and really tackle. It's your goals. And once we, have a direction to meet your goals, let's call it a day,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, I think that's great, and I think again, using those listening skills, using that respect you obviously have for your clients, really gives myself and again the audience, the viewers, that real quick stop understanding of the values, which is so important. So I really thank you for sharing that with me, Rob, because I think it's brilliant that is the base to work from, and like you say, any business that doesn't start with their customer in mind is a business that's just not going anywhere. So thank you for sharing that with me. Okay, welcome back. We're on the R&C Financial Podcast. I'm Gareth. This is Rob, and we're really getting into some fantastic detail here about the past of Rob. Is all of the information around how he was keen to start off his career in the health segment of his work and career. But now we wanted to focus a little bit more about how he helps people on the wealth side of his business. After all, it's called R&C Financial. So Rob, just give us a bit of an inkling then about where that works. Again, what took your interest there, and how is this business kind of multifaceted in that way?
I got involved with helping teachers overcome because teachers, when they retire, they get a pension. But what a lot of teachers don't realize is that the pension they receive is a pay reduction from what they're presently making in their salaries. And the sooner they understand what that is going to look like, the sooner they can do something to overcome that gap between your pension and your actual present income. So, and there's all sorts of different methods that you can actually use. There's really understanding the value of money, understanding the concepts of investment strategies, and because ultimately everybody wants to invest in the marketplace, or in the stocks. That's where the real money is in the stocks. But it's a situation, if you could still invest in the stocks and appreciate the gains without being subject to the losses, and you could be in a vehicle that prevents you from losing any money at all, that ultimately is where you want to be. Now, the thing of it is that I need for you to understand that that's where you want to be as well. So I'll go through a process of educating people about the concepts of investing, but there's also, because ultimately what you're trying to, because when you have a pension and you're a teacher, it's a lifetime pension after you're done. So what you want is something that sits with you to minimize the gap, but there is also a lifetime of overcoming that difference. So there are ways of being able to do that. And it's really actually cost effective the sooner you do it than waiting to the last minute. So just for an example, with my spouse, sold her business 2015, and we had a large chunk of money that we were investing in the marketplace. However, we were also experiencing the decreases, and with COVID, we lost a considerable amount of money. And so, wait a minute, I'm teaching these teachers how to do this. And now I've got it to where we've invested all that money that was subject to losses now in a vehicle that will no longer lose, and my wife will have a guaranteed income for life, as opposed to this big chunk of money. When I pull it out, there's no guarantee. It's just this big chunk of money, and how many people have gone through a big chunk of money in a short amount of time? And they're like, what the heck can I just spend all that money on? Well, it's almost as if you're setting yourself up with the velvet rope thing. So stay within the lines, and really creating that comfort zone. And it's in essence, make that foundation blueprint for yourself. So, and the fact that I was able to do it for myself, my wife, my family, and also do it with teachers, and I can do it with anybody. But it first begins with the education process of understanding what are your goals and what are you willing to do in order to meet those goals, rather than me finding out how much money you can spend on a certain vehicle and trying to give you all this stuff that gives you the amount of money, and it's at the most amount of money that you can spend that month. No, let me ask you, what are your goals, and then what are you willing to, it's a heck of a lot easier to answer that question as opposed to going into a deep dive into your financial analysis and understanding. A lot of people are uncomfortable with me finding out all that information.
Yeah.
I get it. I mean, if I just met you 10 minutes ago, you'd feel much more comfortable in telling me what your goals are rather than how much money you have to spend. Because those are two different things. Let's concentrate on achieving your goals, and really, once you understand what might be necessary to reach those goals, then it's your decision on whether or not you want to undertake that. And at least you have a baseline, and then you can kind of, do steps around it and then get creative. And because everybody's situation, everybody's goals are different, and having that ability to listen to what your goals are and to understand the commitment that you're willing to undertake in order to meet those goals, it's a lot less invasive than me dissecting everything about your bills and mortgage payments, and because your goals pretty much should check all those boxes on finishing, owning your home, paying off your student debt, paying for your children's college. If there were some of your goals, like I said, each one of those goals is inherently got a solution that's worth investigating.
Yeah, totally.
And it's up to us to investigate. You're never going to buy anything to reach your goals unless you understand that this is necessary for me to reach my goal.
Yeah.
Not me telling you, you telling me that it's necessary.
Yeah. So true, isn't it?
I'd rather make my own decisions. I hate to be sold just like everybody else does. I'd rather understand and be empowered to make my own decisions. Thank you very much.
Yeah, totally. I think it was Zig Ziglar who said famously, that you can't reach a target you don't have. Yeah, you can't hit a target you don't have, and that's so true. I mean, I have plenty of Zig Ziglar books behind me as well. What a guy he is, but that's a different podcast altogether. But yeah, you're right. And it's true. In your world of what you're talking about, again, it's that client understanding, the understanding of the client equally, two different things about what those goals are. So again, it's key. Let's move on then, Rob, to a really, really key question. And again, sorry to keep talking about books, but that compound effect, that fantastic book again, which takes place in any financial setting. Just give us a real understanding for the importance of just how important it is to start all these policies, or majority of what you do, at an early age, or as early as you possibly can, as early as you find out. We may have people watching this who are 20, 40, 60, but you said before, didn't you, that again, that old Chinese proverb, isn't it? The best time to plant a tree was yesterday, but the next best time is now. So just give us a flavour for how important that is to your client base, starting early.
I'll tell you, when you're talking about books, the best book that'll really enlighten you, and it's a real easy read, is The Power of Zero. And I forget exactly who wrote it, but nevertheless, that book itself will make it glaringly obvious that if you are doing something about your retirement, and really the sooner, it really illustrates that the sooner you get involved in a solution, the better and more cost effective it is for you. And it's not as painful as it could quite possibly be if you just ignored it. And because there's a lot of people, I don't even want to think about retirement. I get it. You don't want to think about getting old, I mean, I'm 55 years old. I work out 5 days a week, and I try to prevent myself from looking old. I try to prevent myself from feeling old just the same. But, if I tell you, I love that book. And quite frankly, the only way I was able to convince my wife that we needed to get in a different vehicle was getting her to read that book. And she's like, now I understand what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes, my wife, I've been married to her for 22 years. She's 11 years older than me. We actually used to live 15 minutes from each other in the suburbs of Chicago. And we met in Tampa on October 13th, Friday the 13th, full moon 2000. And, we got married 13 months later, and my wife's birthday is August 13th, which 25 years from now, on my wife's 92nd birthday will be the next Friday the 13th, full moon. So there's a lot of 13s going on there. But being 11 years older than me, she knew more than me, and I really didn't have, my communication skills in order to convince my wife, 11 years older than me, that this would be the correct move. I was a diplomat and allowed the book to do the work for me, and it was the best result.
Yeah. No, that's fantastic. And for many people who maybe don't have the chance or haven't read that book yet, then there's a request and a recommendation for you there, straight from Rob's mouth, straight from the horse's mouth, so to speak. And I'm sure,
You look at everything in a different perspective. That's going to allow you to make the best decisions for you, because you'll read the book and you'll be thinking of certain situations and understanding what's the correct course of action for you to take.
Yeah. And thankfully, with you reading that book, and what I've learned in this first episode as we come to close is that because you've read books like that and because you've educated, which we'll come to in future videos, I'm sure, with the amount of education and that you've put into yourself, that your clients can really benefit from that. You know, you don't need to have read all these books, but I mean the ones in your office. If they use you, then they've got an element of all that information in their front room. And I think that's really key. I think we've learned that today in this first episode about that accountability, about that trust that's so ingrained, Rob, in your fantastic character. So I'd like to say thank you to you for letting me just co-host with this first episode of the R&C Financial Vodcast. And I wish you the very best rest of the week. And that's it for this week. Thank you ever so much. I've been Gareth. That's been Rob. And we'll see you soon.